I'll never forget the morning I opened my front door and was hit with a stench so VY it made my stomach lurch. Brown streaks smeared across the pristine white paint, some still wet, glinting in the dawn light. At first, I thought it was a cruel prank, maybe some bored teenagers messing around. But as I stood there covering my nose, the truth hit me like a punch. Someone had deliberately smeared dog poop all over my door. My hands shook as I grabbed my phone to check the doorbell camera footage. What I saw froze my blood. There, in crisp high definition, was Susan Harper, our HOA president, the woman everyone in Pinecrest Meadows called the Queen. She wore blue latex gloves, her face twisted in a smug sneer, as she methodically rubbed dog feces across my door. "Let's see how you like this mess," she hissed, her voice caught clear as day by the camera's mic. "Maybe now you'll learn to clean up after that dog of yours." I watched, jaw dropped, as she peeled off her gloves, stuffed them into a plastic bag, and strutted away like she'd just won a war. 3 months earlier, I'd moved into Pinecrest Meadows with my rescue dog, Buddy, a sweet mutt with big, soulful eyes who'd been left at a shelter. The neighborhood seemed like a dream: neat lawns, quiet streets, perfect for our daily walks. The neighbors were friendly, or so I thought. I knew the HOA had strict rules, but I'm a stickler for following them. I pored over their 57-page handbook, paid my dues on time, and kept my yard spotless. When it came to Buddy, I was obsessive about cleaning up after him. I carried extra waste bags, hand sanitizer, even a little spray bottle of cleaner for sidewalks. Buddy only did his business in pet areas or along the road's edge, and I thought I was the kind of pet owner any community would love. Susan, though, had other ideas. It started just 2 weeks after I moved in. I just bagged Buddy's waste when I heard a sharp, "Excuse me." I turned to see a woman in her 50s, her blonde hair perfectly styled, decked out in designer yoga gear, storming toward me. Her face was pinched with disgust. "You missed a spot," she snapped, pointing at the grass. I looked nothing. "I'm pretty sure I got it all," I said, holding up the seal bag with a smile. "But I'll double-check." Her eyes narrowed. "I'm Susan Harper, president of the Pinecrest Meadows HOA and head of the Pet Cleanliness Task Force," she said, as if it were a royal title. I later found out her task force was just her and 2 neighbors too scared to disagree. "We have zero tolerance for pet waste here," she said, her voice icy. "If you can't keep up, maybe you don't belong." I was stunned by her venom, but stayed calm. "Always clean up after Buddy," I said. "I want this place clean as much as you do." She didn't buy it and left me with a warning to watch myself. I tried to shrug it off, thinking she was just a control freak. But that was only the beginning. Within days, my inbox was flooded with HOA emails, violation notice, pet waste policy, second warning, sanitation breach. Each one accused me of failing to clean up after Buddy, but they never gave specifics. I replied politely, asking for details so I could fix any issues. Instead, Susan doubled down. I started noticing her SUV creeping by whenever I walked Buddy. She'd park across the street, peering through binoculars like some amateur detective. Once I caught her sprinting from her house, phone raised, snapping pictures of Buddy squatting in my own yard. When she saw me, she faked taking photos of her roses 3 houses away. It was ridiculous. She even demanded I send VY proof of every cleanup, claiming responsible pet owners document compliance. She pushed for a rule requiring daily waste logs with timestamps and photos. Thankfully, the HOA board shot that down, but they still slapped me with a warning based on her complaints. I'm in corporate communications, so I'm used to handling tough personalities, but this was next level. After a 3rd warning and a due law 500 fine threat, I got proactive. I recorded every walk with Buddy, documenting each cleanup like a crime scene tech. I installed extra security cameras around my house, half for safety, half to cover my back. Neighbors started whispering their own Susan stories. She'd driven out my home's pre-VYS owners over a basketball hoop, claiming it disrupted the aesthetic. Others got heat for Christmas lights or mailbox colors. One family fled after she organized daily yard inspections over their garden gnomes. Despite their support, Susan's obsession with me and Buddy only grew. She sent daily emails to the HOA board with blurry photos of our walks, time-stamped like EVY Denke. One night, she tailed us for a full 30-minute walk, ducking behind trees and cars to snap pictures. When I called her out, she claimed she was inspecting community grounds, and my presence was coincidental. I tried reasoning with her, inviting her to walk with us to see how careful I was. I offered to meet the HOA board. Nothing worked. She called me combative and said I was defying standards. It felt like she wouldn't stop until Buddy and I were gone. Then came that awful morning. Staring at the footage of Susan's VY act, I felt something snap. This wasn't just harassment, it was criminal. Hands trembling, I dialed 911. I need to report vandalism and harassment, I told the dispatcher, voice steady despite my rage. My neighbor smeared dog poop on my door. I've got all on camera. They sent officers right over. While waiting, I backed up the video to the cloud and snapped photos of the mess. When the cops arrived, their faces went from neutral to horrified as they watched the footage. That's pretty blatant, Officer Daniels said, shaking his head. This is your HOA president. I showed them my folder of emails, photos, and notes on Susan's months-long campaign. They took notes, saying there were grounds for vandalism, harassment, even stalking charges. They promised to sit Susan immediately. What happened next shook Pinecrest Meadows. As the police cruiser rolled up to Susan's house, neighbors poked their heads out, drawn by the flashing lights. Word spread like wildfire through our group chat. By the time the cops led Susan out in handcuffs, a crowd had gathered, watching in stunned silence as the neighborhood's tyrant was finally brought low. "This is outrageous," she yelled, her voice echoing. I was upholding standards. The board will hear about this. But her bluster fell flat. As the cruiser drove off, the crowd broke into applause, a wave of relief washing over us. Within hours, the video was everywhere: social media, local news, even national outlets. My phone buzzed nonstop with reporters wanting quotes. The story hit a nerve. Everyone's dealt with a Susan. By nightfall, the video had millions of VYUs, with comments pouring in, some outraged, some cheering. The HOA board, under fire, called an emergency meeting. The room was packed, and neighbor after neighbor stood to share their own Susan horror stories. It was clear her reign of terror had gone unchecked for years because people feared her. The board voted unanimously to suspend her, issuing a public apology to me and others she'd targeted. Susan's legal fallout was swift. With the video as ironclad EVY Denke, her lawyer pushed a plea deal. She got 2 years probation, a $2,500 fine, 100 hours of community care VYC, and had to pay $800 to refinish my door. A judge slapped her with a restraining order, barring her from coming near me or my property. But the real blow was social. Susan's image as the HOA's queen crumbled. The board permanently removed her, citing conduct unbecoming. When she left the courtroom, I caught her expression not smug anymore, but shell-shocked, like she couldn't believe her actions had consequences. For the first time, Susan felt the sting of judgment she'd dished out for years. Pinecrest Meadows felt lighter, like we'd all been freed. But the story doesn't end there. What would you do if you caught someone like Susan in the act? Should HOAs have this much power over neighbors? And how far is too far when it comes to enforcing standards? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button if this got your blood boiling, and subscribe for more wild stories like this one.